Hello and welcome to our webinar, What's New in RightScale. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, I am going to ask you a couple questions. We have a few polls and we'd love to get your feedback. Helps us tailor the webinar. The first question, have you or are you planning on using Rackspace? Just select one. Yes, you're using Rackspace. You have several serious projects running in the Rackspace cloud. Yes, you have at least one project that's growing or increasing. You're starting to explore using Rackspace, or no, you are not using Rackspace. Just a couple more seconds. Results are coming in. Thank you. I'm going to launch the results now, and there's a good distribution. So some of you have serious projects, others are exploring, and then 47% no, nothing in Rackspace. So about 50-50. Next question. Which technologies do you use in your environment? So this is a multi-select, choose all that apply. Do you use SQL Server, PostgreSQL, Windows 2008 R2, Ubuntu or CentOS, CentOS, however you prefer to say it, or Oracle database? So we'll leave this running for a couple more seconds. Results are in. A bunch of you on Ubuntu and CentOS. A lot of you are on SQL Server and Windows 2008 R2, about 52% there. Cool, thank you so much. This was really helpful. With that, we're going to get started with the webinar. So I have here with me today Daryl Eaton. He's Director of Product Management here at RightScale. And I also have Siobhan Vindal. He's a Product Manager. And these guys are going to spend some time with you today talking about RightScale's most recent release, as well as our new server templates. They're the ones who are pretty much the best equipped to be able to have that conversation, so you're in good hands. We also have on our Q&A line David Welch, Account Manager. So what he's doing is hanging out behind the scenes and answering your questions as they come in. So if you have any questions, simply use the GoToWebinar questions pane to submit them, and Dave will answer your questions. Also, if there are any that are like more broadly applicable to the audience as a whole, Daryl and Siobhan will field those questions live on the air. So go ahead, you can ask questions at any time. All of us are monitoring that and looking at it. We see them as they come in, so definitely ask us your questions. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Daryl.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Everyone, I'm so glad you could join us today for this release webinar. As I said in the last one, we're starting to do this with every release now, starting this year. So this is the second one this year, and want to go through both the dashboard release as well as the server template release. But before I get into those, I also want to go through our new customer feedback form. RightScale has always been a customer feedback-driven company, so we want to make sure that we continue to get your feedback in the best way possible and meet as many of your needs as we can. So we'll go through all of this and we'll get started. So first, give us your feedback. As I mentioned, where do you think we get all these great ideas? They're all from you. Before we had a variety of different ways that we received the feedback. One of them was the enhancement request process that would go through our services group. But we've now launched feedback.rightscale.com. And this is a way for you to submit it more directly and also for us to get a sense of how many other customers each request affects. So as things bubble up towards the top, which you can make happen by voting for features, we can see which one's the most important that we need to hit first. So I'm going to briefly show you how you can submit feedback. So if you go to support in the top right of the dashboard, and click on feedback, you'll be automatically signed in to the customer feedback portal, and you can see that you have a certain number of votes. We're taking feedback on a variety of categories, and you can just start typing, I wish I had a Postgres template. It'll search and see if there's anything here that's applicable. If I look down, I do see that someone already has posted Database Manager for PostgreSQL 9. So I'd go ahead and click on that and vote on it. In this particular case, we have shipped this, and I'll go through this when we talk about the server template release. We do have an alpha version available and would love continued feedback. Also, to show you kind of how else this might work, here's one area where we received this feedback and we already had it in the code base, so we actually pushed it out. We wanted to be able to filter the EBS snapshots list so that it only shows my snapshots before it was showing everybody's. And we pushed it out, and Robert thought that that was pretty awesome. So one nice thing about this interface is if you vote or submit feedback in it, we can let you know the status of it, and you'll get an email each time that status changed. So once he got the status completed, he came back in and commented. So you'll know right when things ship and are available that you're interested in. So I definitely would encourage everybody to start using this feedback form. It's been great so far, and we've seen a lot of great feedback coming in, and look forward to more. So as I mentioned, we did see the database manager and it got a few votes. We had heard many people asking for that before, so I'll be happy to let you know about this later. Okay, so let's go into the dashboard release for May 5th. So this was a big release in terms of a lot of stuff that we put in behind the scenes. And one of the big ones was translation support. So we added the ability to switch to Japanese as the first language. So you can see here I'm now switching the dashboard to Japanese just by clicking in the bottom left corner. And you can see that most of the dashboard has been translated to Japanese. The great thing behind this is we set it up in a way where we should be able to quickly start adding new languages and open that up to our community to help us translate pretty soon, hopefully within the next few months. So first out the gate is Japanese. This should be welcome news to our customers who are starting to use the Japan Cloud. And then definitely open to your feedback, and you can use the feedback form for that on what languages you would like to see next. Another item that we added, in the last release we added stat graphs and heat maps, launched those. We've now added the ability to put these as widgets onto your dashboard. So our goal for the dashboard is to make a one-stop shop. When you come in, you can see kind of everything that's happening in your deployment at once. How are my systems doing? How are my servers doing? How's my spend doing? So we'll keep adding more and more here as we go. If you haven't used widgets yet, just want to point out that you can also create your own custom widgets using a special domain-specific language that we're using. Or you can have the built-in widgets that we create. So for example, you see now that there's a new widget called Cluster Monitor. And you can either add it here, or I'm going to go to the deployment under the monitoring tab. And you'll see here that I have a cluster monitor already defined. It's a heat map for the Apache requests for my two front-end servers. And you'll notice here that there's just an Add Widget button now that you can see. And it's as simple as clicking on that widget. If you go back to the dashboard, you'll see the heat map has been added in, and you can put it to where you want to put it. And now you have a good view of kind of your cluster. If you don't like that name, you can change the name. You have the option to change the type of aggregated graph here. And then you can have everything that you need up front. And again, this is by user, so each user can have a different view. If some of them are developers, they might have a view of their developer machines. If people are using production deployments, then they can put their monitoring for their production deployments. So that is the ability to add those as widgets. We also have the ability to search write scripts. If you're in any of the library views or some of the server template views and write script views, you'll see a new button called Search Write Scripts. So this is your personal library, and you can do as it says, or as you would think it would do, which is you search for terms or variables or whatever you think you might want to be searching for in the right script, and we'll look in your local library and find that script for you. One thing I want to point out on the cloud support side, Amazon Web Services launched Oracle RDS, and last week, sort of out of the release ban, we did launch support for Oracle RDS as well. So in our dashboard, if you create a new RDS instance, you will now see the database engine options for Oracle, and they are right they are somewhere in here. Oh, they would be under engine, and the demo gods are not looking kindly on me right now, but you would see Oracle RDS here, and we can maybe try in a different account. But look for that. Now, I think there are a few different engine types, and one key thing to point out as well is that you can now associate an ELB or an RDS with a deployment. So if you want those to show up inside your deployment view that they're related to, you can pick that deployment and they'll show up at the bottom of the deployment. This is a request from many customers to make sure they can see everything in one view. So that's it for the dashboard release, and I'll move on to the server template release. So this is actually happening as we speak. We had some templates that were released about 2 weeks ago as a first part of this release, and then a bunch of templates that are getting released now over the next few days, and we'll walk through which ones are which. First of all, I am very happy to announce that we have Linux server template support for Rackspace. So we've had kind of the regular dashboard support, starting and stopping instances, looking at the run rate for your cloud usage, cloud spend, for I guess around 2 years now, but we've been working very closely with Rackspace to add server template support as well. So there are actually a lot more than 2 server templates that we've made available so far for Rackspace, some of which are Windows, which we had last release, and then with this release we are adding the base server template for Linux. And you can see here they're starting to grow in terms of the numbers of clouds that they're supporting. We also have the LAMP all-in-one with MySQL, which you can now launch on Rackspace as well. So if I come over here, you'll see that this template I have running on both Amazon in the East region as well as Rackspace, both operational. And if I dig into the template and the images, you can see that we have a CentOS 5.4 Rackspace image out right now, and we are working on additional images as well, including Ubuntu, as well as many additional templates. Okay, so that I'm getting a question right here. Hold on one second. So currently we are a Rackspace partner. We have a RightScale account, but we don't receive any special partner support. Does RightScale have a similar program? So I'm not familiar with the Rackspace partner maybe program as much. However, we do have a variety of different services products, and one of them might be it depends on what you're looking for, consultative support, or someone to be kind of there as like a technical account manager to help you work through any issues. There are a variety of different services products that I would encourage you to look into, which would also support Rackspace and the other clouds that we support as well. So thank you for that question. And another one. Is RightScale compatible with VMware Cloud Foundry? So Cloud Foundry is a platform as a service, open source platform as a service package. And I don't know if compatible is the right word. We do have a server template that works on Amazon, which sets up Cloud Foundry on Amazon. And we are working on adapting that to other clouds. So if compatible means it works with, yes, we do. In fact, we have a template that sets it up and makes it run within the Amazon cloud right now, and hopefully other clouds of your choice in the future. But that was something that we were very happy to work with VMware on. Okay, thank you for those. So I will keep getting I'll keep moving on the Rackspace stuff then. So again, everything is here now in terms of what you would expect for server templates. So you see that there is monitoring available for this server. The server template has all the scripts associated with it. You can run operational scripts. All these boot scripts ran to set it up. Inputs, everything that you would expect in terms of the server templates are now available on Rackspace. So again, thank you to Rackspace as well for working with us to get this launched. Another thing that we're very excited to announce is Database Manager for PostgreSQL 9. We have many people asking for this since 9 fixed a lot of the replication problems in PostgreSQL. So this is a full HA solution, much like our MySQL master-slave solution. It is a master-slave paradigm for PostgreSQL. You would bring up 2 copies of the template, set one to master mode and one will be slave. We have all the failover built in, all the DNS management built in. So for those of you who do use PostgreSQL, I would encourage you to check this out. It is in the library right now, and we are very interested in your feedback. You can put that right into the feedback.rightscale forum underneath that entry, and very eager to see people who do want this adopt it and help us make it even better and work for you. Another thing that will be rolling out over the next few days is a new database manager for MySQL. So in terms of other multi-cloud templates that we're rolling out, this is one of our flagship templates that we're revving for a multi-cloud environment or a hybrid cloud environment. And very cool stuff that we're looking into. So one is, you can run in one cloud and back up to another, or run in one cloud and back up to that same cloud and another cloud. So you'll be seeing this pop up in the library over the next few days. We'll be demoing it next week at the user conference. And I would definitely encourage you to check that out if you're working on another cloud that is not Amazon, or if you're working on Amazon as well. One thing that I hope to demo next week is that you can back up both an EBS volume as well as back up a snapshot to S3. So in case you needed to move to another region, you would have that capability as well. So this is a major revamp of the Database Manager, and it will be for multiple clouds moving out there. I'm going to turn this over to Siobhan in a second on Windows Server templates, but before I do that, I'm going to run through the rest of these. If you don't use Apache and you're starting to use Nginx, we have also revved our Passenger and PHP App Server templates to use Nginx. So then there are now additional templates. Sorry, there still are the Apache ones, but there are now additional Nginx templates for those app servers, and we encourage you to use those if you're an Nginx customer. Windows 2008 R2 on AWS will be rolling out over the next few days. So these are multi-cloud images, and we have taken the R2 AMIs from Amazon, applied a bunch of the security patches, put RightLink 5.7 on it, and done a variety of things to make them really, really sharp images, and those will be coming out over the next few days. I saw many of you were interested in the polls, so look for that, and please give us your feedback as it comes out. Ubuntu 11.04, when they launched this on Amazon, these official canonical images actually work with RightScale out of the box. So we didn't have to do much, but if you go into the library, if you are using Ubuntu, I would encourage you to use these multi-cloud images that we've made available, and all they simply do is point to the official canonical images, which are ready to work with RightLink out of the box. So it's a nice way that we can kind of keep up to date with the official canonical images, and it essentially downloads RightLink and sets it up on the fly, so that you can manage that within RightScale. So that's for those of you who might use Ubuntu 11.04. CentOS 5.4 images. So we now have all the popular hypervisor supports on CloudStack, so Xen, VMware, and KVM. So for those of you who are doing private clouds with CloudStack, you should have full support for your hypervisor right now. Maybe some things to mention coming out in the future, just a little forward-looking. So once we get the Database Manager in place, For the hybrid cloud setting, we'll also be working on the app server and the proxy tier for the hybrid cloud setting. And you'll soon start to see some images roll out on Eucalyptus as well, and those will have to be folded back into the multi-cloud templates too. So lots of great stuff coming up, and with that, I will forward this over to Siobhan, who's going to tell you about some of the very cool new things coming out on the Windows side.
Great. Thank you very much, Daryl. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm really pleased to announce, actually, that we made some great strides with our Windows offering in server templates. In particular, we've got two server templates that I'd like to talk about today. One you may have actually seen previously in an alpha state. So we've actually revved our SQL Server server template, and we'll go through in a little bit of detail what we've added to that to really make it into a beta. And then also, really to enable the strongest use case we've seen to date in terms of what Windows users are doing on the cloud. We now have an IIS application server template, which will enable auto-scaling for .NET applications, which is really, really exciting. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and dive straight into what the server template actually looks like. It's literally a front-end server or an application server that will configure your application on boot. From the perspective of our existing application servers that you may be familiar with on the Linux side, it's very similar. There are some key things that I will point out here. So as with all of our server templates, we do have monitoring around some of the key metrics with CPU, memory, and disk usage installed by default, but we also go into a little bit more detail around IIS-specific monitoring. And of course, the write scripts here will define exactly what those specific things do. A couple things to point out in particular is as the server comes up, it will automatically download your application code, install it, and configure it. But also it will connect directly to your database server in the database tier as well. And so literally by just launching the server, you'll be able to get your application up and running in an auto-scaling manner. So if you have this server template configured to run in a server array, you could vote to auto-scale pretty much completely automatically. One thing that I do want to highlight here is that as part of the boot sequence, we do install the AWS SDK, and this enables us to do certain things such as register with an ELB out of the box. So just digging in a little bit onto this write script for a moment, you'll notice that this write script is written in PowerShell. And if you actually look at some of what's happening here, we do push down some credentials and information down to the instance through our agent, and we go ahead and create some objects here and connect to the Elastic Load Balancing Service to register the application server to start servicing requests. And so, again, this really speaks to the capabilities of the server template and being able to launch an application using .NET. Moving right along, one of the other server templates that we want to talk about is the Database Manager for SQL Server. And really, we came out with this server template earlier this year in alpha form and leveraged, again, as Daryl said before, a lot of customer feedback to enhance this and really make it what it is today. And this server template is probably where a lot of our innovation has really gone into. We've made some great strides with some key pieces of functionality, which I'm going to cover in a moment. First and foremost, there's some really great best practice implementations here. We've actually configured the server template to not only reliably attach EBS volumes onto this server, but also, you can actually predefine in advance how your EBS volumes will be configured on this server. So for example, if you know that your EBS volumes will contain data on a specific drive and log files on a specific drive, you can define that up front using our inputs on the server template. And RightScale will go ahead and guarantee that when that server comes up, the appropriate EBS volumes will be attached with the right drive letters. And this really enables the applications to configure themselves. So your application code and your databases themselves will be able to know in advance how to reference your data and your log volumes and things like that. So you can configure your scripts to actually talk directly to the data files as necessary. In addition to the smart volume configuration that we've actually implemented, we also leverage volume shadow services from Microsoft to provide sane data snapshots. And so as these EBS volumes are configured for both data as well as your log files on the SQL Server, we can actually install or configure database backup policies that will leverage volume shadow services to quiesce SQL Server writes to the data volume and then snapshot so that we can actually take database backups quickly and efficiently and later, as necessary, restore in case of any sort of failure. One thing to point out that I may not have mentioned before is that this database manager is still a primary standalone master SQL server. It is not a high availability solution yet. We are working towards that, so if we were to look in the future a little bit, that's something that you could see coming up hopefully very soon. To dig in a little bit, I do want to talk about some of the other configuration tools that RightScale provides in the server template. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was that we pride ourselves with some of the best practice configurations that Microsoft recommends. And so just to take a quick example of that, in this specific write script that again is also using PowerShell, we're configuring TempDB against a best practice from Microsoft. As you may, if some of you who are familiar with PowerShell, you may see here, what we're actually doing is we're creating TempDB data files, and in a best practice manner, there's actually a performance enhancement you get if you create an equal number of data files for your TempDB as there are CPUs on the system itself. And so what we're doing here is we're dynamically detecting how many cores are on the box or on the instance itself and creating additional data files as necessary. And then we're also actually changing the recovery model of TempDB to simple as well, as you can see by this little snippet of PowerShell. So with that, I just wanted to highlight again that this server template is in beta, but it is something that we're actively looking to get usage on and collect a lot more feedback so that we can enhance it even more. So I encourage you all to try that out. And with that, I'll go ahead and transition right back to Daryl.
You want to go through the IIS? Okay, great. Thank you, Siobhan. All right, so let's see. I do want to clarify an answer. I'm not sure if anyone can see it, but let me just say one of the questions that was in the form. For the database manager for MySQL, backup to another cloud, does that include other providers such as backup from EC2 to Rackspace, or is it only between availability zones and regions? So I personally think that this is one of the coolest things in sliced bread, this new template that we're coming out with. So what I plan to demo next week is it is running on Rackspace, but it is taking backups to both Rackspace cloud files as well as Amazon S3. So it is designed to take multiple backups at the same time, and it is designed to push it to multiple clouds. And the way that we do this is essentially we're leveraging LVM on the instance. This is instance-based, but you can also attach volumes in Amazon, EBS volumes. We leverage LVM to do the snapshots, and that way we can upload the snapshots to kind of wherever we want and bring them back and restore whichever type of volume, either instance or EBS-based volume that we want during the restoration. So very cool use cases that will now be possible with this, and I'm just very excited to be able to showcase this next week, and you'll see it pop up over the probably over the next few days into the library. Again, this will be an alpha template. It is a standalone database. Same thing here. We're working on the standalone first, and then we'll move it to high availability master slave. But it will be a standalone template to start. And we would love your feedback, and you can do that on the feedback form or directly with services, and we'll go from there. So yes, that is a good clarification that should be made. So with that, I will open it up at this point to Q&A. If you haven't had your question, if you haven't had a chance to ask your question yet, I would encourage you to do so. And while you are, I just want to remind everybody that if you're looking for the current release notes, we always have them at support.rightscale.com release notes. And just to make sure that everybody's familiar, so you can see that the current dashboard release notes are right here from the May 2nd, was it May 4th release, and you can go through and see what is there, how to do it, etc. And then same thing for these server templates. You'll always find them here. So this is a two-stage server template release, so you can see what was already released 2 weeks ago, and when we release over the next few days, you'll see these updated with all the new templates. So please check here for all the details on the release, as well as links to the documentation for the newer features. And with that, any more questions? Looks like there are a decent amount coming in, so I'll give them a second to roll in. Okay, so let's see. I see one here, Siobhan. We had a rumor that Windows instances should be faster to load with this release. Is that so?
Good question. Absolutely. So what we've done with our write images this sprint is we've actually enhanced them so that they reboot less frequently, when they actually boot. So absolutely, you should see some significant performance enhancements on boot times.
We have another question that says, what are you doing to alleviate the EBS issues on AWS? So I'm going to make a assumption on that one that you're referring to some of the EBS issues that sort of brought down some of the sites recently. While we can't do anything to actually help their system, of course, for example, one of the things that this template is designed to do is you can have both, if you are using EBS volumes, you would also not only be able to take EBS snapshots, but you would also be able to take regular LVM snapshots and have them uploaded to S3. So in the event of the similar EBS problem, which was affecting multiple availability zones, you'd be able to transfer to a different region, restore the LVM snapshot, reattach an EBS volume in a different region, even though you don't have the EBS snapshots available, and bring the database back up. So that's some of the things that we're looking into on how to use the automation that's possible in RightScale to defend against anything like that in the future. We're seeing, and then I guess a clarification on that, we're seeing continuous I/O performance issues before and after April 21st. Again, this is something that we've given a lot of feedback to Amazon on and are working with to help them try to alleviate it. In terms of what we can do, I would encourage you to continue to send any information you have to Amazon. This new template does use instance-based storage if you do want to go that route, which would alleviate some of those issues. But on the EBS side, that Amazon is, I know, working on that heavily. Okay, I have another question. When do you expect some of the Rackspace Linux images to come out of beta? Well, usually we put it in beta and we give that option to services. So services, after working with a few customers, will decide that something is strong enough to come out of beta. And so I can't give a full timeline on that. Just know that when things do come out of beta, they've been through heavy testing, often with specific use cases with customers, and services gets to decide when that happens. What I want to just set expectations, you'll see a lot more newer things coming into the Rackspace side as beta, newer templates, newer images, for example, like Ubuntu, and then over time, as they all become solid, we will roll them into general availability. Okay, it looks like that is most of the questions. So I just want to thank you all for joining, and I hope this was helpful. We're trying to make sure that we get the voice out on everything that we're releasing in a variety of manners, both the release notes, these webinars, and you'll also see a blog post tomorrow on the server templates, as you'll see blog posts for each dashboard and server template release. Finally, we do send out the newsletter every once in a while with the release. We'll include all the items that were in the release in the newsletter as well, so make sure that you're receiving that. And with that, I will say thank you and enjoy.